I've never done it either.
You are live. Let's see on here. I guess I won't touch. I guess I'll look on my phone. And then I'll look on the second screen. Let's see. Got
I'm
anybody?
joining. It's.
Events.
I know one is me, just so that way I can check it out and see the chat.
Let me mute this tab just in case. How do you mute site? Click to join live.
Oh,
No, we got 11 people, John. 12 people.
oh my goodness. Well, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all around the world. Thanks for joining. So I just want to talk about the new Matrice 350 today. When I thought of this idea yesterday and texted John, I thought it'd be a big old launch. Hearing rumors of a M600 replacement and such, so we're a little underwhelmed on that. But talk about the new one. People got some comments, got some suggestions. If you're upgrading, if you own one, your experience with one, all that. Make sure to chime in here in the comments, and we'll make sure to answer them. So, my name is David Moss with MGS for distributor. These sorts of things. Work with DJI. Work with Whisper Systems. They got an enterprise main USA drone, GDU as well. And then I have with me John Romero from Scout Aerial Solutions. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, John.
Yeah, I'm John Romero with Scout Aerial Solutions LLC. I'm a drone and geospatial service provider for construction and any other kind of enterprise and industries. So I kind of got started this route with the United States military. They taught me how to fly drones for Army reconnaissance, and not just specifically as like a 15 whiskey or something like that, but as a cavalry scout, so as a ground guy going out and actually finding information, sitting out in OPs and whatnot. And through my time in construction, I also thought, well, is there a way to pull information as a ground guy and pull this in and start getting better processes for construction? And that really kind of got me started down the process of looking at how drones can be used for different types of geospatial collection, how to pull information and really just take advantage of that information for job sites. And so that led me down eventually the path to meeting David and starting getting into LiDAR and some heavier end equipment. So that way I can help provide for the construction industry in the area.
Well, fantastic. And you have an M300 here, as we can see in the photo. What kind of payloads do you put on it?
So the primary payloads are a GeoSlam Zeb Horizon, which is extremely easy to be able to fly around a site. Mostly because you don't even have to do a calibration. It will just slam out 40, 44, 50 acres and keep everything to scale. And I've compared some of that data with even the Inertial Labs XT32 that we did on a demo day, and they matched up almost 1-to-1 without any drift, which was surprising. And then the other one that I run is also a P1 sensor, a Zenmuse P1 sensor on there, and do some super obliques and stuff like that with it. And primarily a lot of absolutely accurate orthos with that. The last map that we did that was for the Helen McCobb State Park. That one ended up being an RMSE. The GPS RMSE on that was 0.66 of an inch, which is pretty good, pretty substantial on that. So fairly accurate system, and it's been a fantastic system to operate. It reminds me kind of the drone that I use in the military, although honestly better operating, way better operating.
Or what are some of the advantages that you've seen? I mean, you mentioned that, better operations, but just easier to use, easier to deploy. What all has been
Oh,
on this?
really kind of just the whole gamut. The military still kind of operates on at least from what I've seen from the drones that I use in a small scale, and we are getting better at that. A lot of the UAS are still very clunky to be able to use. Whereas the deployability of, say, like an M300 is 5 minutes compared to 15 or 30 minutes that I've been able to do with the ones that I had in the military. So a lot of the common civilian drones are honestly a leagues ahead, which you can see in some developments across the world globally.
On all those military drones, one of the nice things people always say about the M300 is the FPV camera. Some of those drones that they have an FPV or just flying out in the open, or what was the experience like with that?
Oh, so as far as like the FPV camera on the M300.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the FPV camera honestly has been an extremely good safety boon to have on just a drone in general. So using smaller scale drones like the Autel Evo 2 Enterprise or like a Skydio, if you have a single camera, if you're doing an ortho or you're trying to do any kind of modeling, you can't really see where you're going. And so being able to orient your flight and figure out exactly where you want to know if there's power lines, if you're coming into contact with them, trees, or if you're just trying to make sure that you can keep it a good cue on a scene, but also know exactly where the drone is going. That FPV camera is almost a must for safety purposes. So having a dual camera setup and kind of getting into the M350, having that night vision setup is also really good too.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
pulling that up right now. That seemed like
mhm,
arguably the biggest upgrade other than the batteries is the nice FPV camera there.
mhm.
I don't know if I told
Be,
you, but I ended up ordering one this morning, so we'll have to
oh,
go
you
test it
ordered
out
a 350?
finally.
That's awesome. Yeah, having that night vision capability, it may not necessarily be best geared for everybody who's doing mapping jobs, because if you're doing any kind of ortho mosaics, you're looking at doing that during the daytime anyways. But if you're doing LiDAR flights and you want to do that more towards the evening, or even if you do have kind of some first response stuff or emergency type stuff that you can use other payloads with, being able to have that night vision capability for that FPV is kind of a game changer for that.
I'm sure we'll see more and more of these night flights from there. So some of the main upgrades looks like you got a new battery system as well. Not main kind of things that seems faster charge, and then you're getting double the charge life out of them. So recommended 200 charge life on the M300 to now 400, and kind of the big thing as well that they're backwards compatible too. Everything that we're talking
Mhm,
about today is surprisingly backwards compatible as well, which is surprising to see from DJI, but cool to
mhm.
see.
Yeah, and that I will say is extremely nice, because now everybody who has an M300 also has the capabilities to use these new batteries too. And if anything, I'd say that probably does show the commitment on DJI, saying that, hey, we already built a really good platform. And the platform's been out for years now already, but that workhorse is still going to be catered to as the main workhorse for their drone line. So being able to use both of their batteries back and forth, you just can't mix the two, but being able to use those batteries back and forth and having better charge times, I think is a heck of a thing to do.
And nice little game changer to have the 360 wheels. I don't know if I saw that, but
Yeah,
roll the case around in the hotel room when you get there at night. That's a nice little bonus. But
yeah. And I was saying that the other nice thing about that battery case is being able to also do maintenance charging on your batteries
oh,
too. So for like long-term life, the wheels are great. I think the only problem with the wheels is, unless they're detachable, for my personal operations, I always throw it in the back of my rig, and those wheels are a bunch of empty space. But if you're able to take those things off, I think that's fantastic, being able to have that new charger.
that's a good point too. So looks like got the new RC Plus controller everybody raving about. First came out with the M30 series. Came out last month as well with the Inspire 3, and Now with this, have you had a chance to use one of these yet, or seen one in person?
I've
Try.
got a chance. Sorry, I've got a chance to see one in person, but I haven't gotten a chance to use it. The only thing that I would say is after using the Autel Evo 2 Enterprise controller, the large controller, and then using the smaller controller that the M300 has, uh, screen real estate is definitely a must, especially for an enterprise unit. And being able to have all of those buttons and everything and the increased range on there too is a must. So I might even look into upgrading into that just because having that bigger controller is is great for planning missions. I know that I have moderately sized hands, and this is going to be kind of an odd statement to make, I suppose. But I have moderately sized hands, and if you have a person with much larger hands on that smaller screen, it's harder to plan missions because it's essentially just an Android screen, right? But
Hmm.
having that larger screen real estate to be able to plan missions does actually help you out quite a bit. Bigger screens is good. I'm glad to see that's coming around more in the industry instead of let's just use our phone or let's just use a small little screen. Small screens are fine if you have a travel unit, but if you have an enterprise unit, big screens. Get big screens.
And next to it's going to take the same WB37 external battery, hot swappable, can keep going all day. And it looks like it's got a nice addition too. Is you got all these extra buttons that you didn't have before. I don't know how personally I'll use them, but looks like maybe more on when my Inspire 3 comes in. But do you see yourself figuring out any way, or can you think of anything off the top of your head with the P1 that would be interesting to interesting to use those buttons for? Just
Um, yes, actually, because I know that there are sometimes when you're coming across different terrain features that if you have extra shading, shadowing, or anything like that, being able to pause the mission and change your settings really quickly, either change the shutter speed or changing your exposure rate just a little bit, just for that brief area, can make a better ortho. And then having to get in there on the screen and change everything. If you have quick swap buttons where you can just pause, hit exactly what you need, adjust that, and move on, that can excuse me, that can actually make things a little bit easier. Because if you have gloves on, or if it just touching the screen, like your hands are dirty or something like that, and you don't want to touch your screen, that's going to be a lot nicer to be able to have some physical buttons to get to. And of course, if you have your other payloads on there, just being able to have extra buttons to change between your FLIR settings, change between your zoom settings if you don't have your wheel that's capable at the time. Maybe you're using your wheel for something different entirely. So that there's a lot of ways to use those buttons. I really like programmable buttons, and usually I don't have enough whenever it comes to some planning or some missions that I'm doing.
so definitely nice. Yeah, have you set up any of the buttons on your M300 at all? Or I've
Y-
never gotten around to
y-
doing it on mine, but
yeah, usually like my back buttons, I'll usually have it to where there's a gimbal down and a gimbal up, just so I can easily check a reference of, hey, where am I spatially if I can't really make good contact with the ground. I can see the drone, but I can't see where my ground reference is specifically. The left side will usually be like a gimbal recenter. What's up?
I was thinking it'd be kind of interesting. We were talking before right before we got online about the top mount and the dual down. I'm not sure if on the weight, but it'd be interesting to put like have the Geo Slam on the bottom and then put like the P1 or the H20 on the top, and then you could have it 180 degrees around, and then you could have the FPV camera, and then you could have
Yeah,
one behind you too. That'd be kind of interesting
yeah.
experiment.
I don't think the weight would work out on that, unfortunately. It would. I think
Probably
you could definitely. What's up?
You can probably do it with the M2X or something, or with the Avia.
Yeah, I think with the an inertial labs like M2X with the weight reduction on there, I think you could definitely do that with it. But as far as like the GeoSlam unit, that one's usually that's tipping the scales almost all the way up. And when I went to go weigh the payload to figure out how much it was worth, I could put one camera, like a GoPro camera, onto the scale, and that usually tipped it right to the final operational mark. So that there's not a lot to work with on the GeoSlam unit. So I think you could put extra GPS on there. I haven't tried that yet, but if we had a different system, I think it would work just fine.
See there. So another nice addition on the right here, IP55 instead of 45. So, I
Hmm.
assume you probably wouldn't want to push the limit just because either your camera or your lidar is gonna get wet, and that would ruin it just with it, having the moisture on it.
Hmm.
But that's definitely a nice addition. Anytime they can get in the right direction.
Yeah, for first responders, I could definitely see that being good. For people who are doing or mapping and planning and stuff like that, it's not nearly as much because I could see maybe some light rain that you would be willing to take, maybe some light snow for planning certain mapping missions. For a drone service provider company like myself, that is actually pretty nice because we usually do a lot of different types of jobs, from dealing with construction companies to doing mapping jobs to sometimes a little bit of emergency response. I've done a couple SAR volunteer stuff myself, and having the flexibility to be able to operate in multiple different conditions is pretty good, especially for, say, you needed to do an emergency inspection on uh, some cell towers or power lines during fire season, or during like after a heavy windstorm where there might still be some gales here and there. You wouldn't want to really bring it up during really heavy winds, but being able to have that wind resistance and that IP rating means that your drone's going to be fine. So I think that's great for flexibility. Just like that. Yeah, just like that one.
I was about to say, I wonder what this one's rated at because I know it's
Yeah.
more of that first responder. Figured it would really take advantage of that, but let's see if it'll be on this front page. I might have to just
Yeah.
go to the
I'm surprised.
specs.
I would be surprised if they didn't have it on there. I haven't really checked it a bit.
It's not really something you or I would ever buy, but
I think it was up there.
oh yeah, 55 as well. So
55 as well, yeah.
so
So now you could take your M350 into a tsunami. That's fantastic. It's so effectively what DJI just did is they made a submarine. Um, not really. Don't do that.
I do like that the battery, the smart battery charge, like it is right there. It's in the back now too.
Hmm.
It's just that's where you're loading them and taking them off, so it's nice to a little quicker to see it. But it looks like they're a little bigger in size too, but same exact
Yeah,
frame. I looked at all the dimensions this morning, same frame, same exact everything, just
yeah,
upgraded FPV and then upgraded controller. But interestingly that there's not anything, I guess, upgraded battery too. But
yeah. I do wonder too, for certain safety systems, how this new configuration will work. If it'll actually work just the same, which would be amazing. And kind of what I'm referring to is I've seen some parachute systems that actually have a breaker in between the battery and the unit itself that'll cut power off and then it'll deploy the parachute system, so the parachutes aren't getting caught up in the rotors, and the rotors aren't taking off drastically. So I believe the EU requires that in certain areas, but I'm not entirely certain on that. But I've seen those units out there. And for safety
yeah,
with flights over populated areas, that's a good safety feature. So it'd be interesting to see how those integrate with this new unit.
be a good thing to see. Have you ever had to rent one of those or any experience of that with the military and everything? Having a parachute on a
No,
drone?
so military training, you don't put parachutes on that kind of stuff. If it gets shot down and destroyed, it would be much preferred to have it get destroyed so no information is ever taken from it. And you're not concerned about ground safety nearly as much with a small UAS. And in fact, the rules are kind of different for being able to operate in like a restricted operating zone. Like you're flying at 1,000 feet. You're flying at night. You're flying with no visual reference system. You're flying with night vision. and you're essentially fly blind and fly it out there for miles. So it's an entirely different setup. So whereas civilian operations are much more concerned about safety over populated areas quite a bit more. So, and a unit like that, especially if you're carrying a heavy payload, yeah, having a parachute system, that's something I have looked into for certain jobs if we're getting closer to the center of towns, to get a parachute system to say, hey, if we're operating over here, we have a safety parameter that'll allow us to be able to deploy something to keep people safe and hopefully recover the drone later. If we can't, that's what insurance is for, but hopefully we can recover the drone later.
That is nice about the battery. You can
Mm-hmm.
leave it on the storage, charge it up to what you need for the day, or you know, just kind of
Yeah.
like an electric car kind of setting now, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Something else I'd like to touch on, you just passed by it. It was they have sensors now for their arm locks.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's a nice
So it in that I what's up?
that's a nice addition too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that possibly being a faulty point, maybe, because I know when you start getting those exterior sensors that have moving parts, those can be points of failure. And that might get annoying where you actually have it locked and the system says, oh no, it's still not locked, and it won't allow you to take off. I think something that I would still like on some of on some of the DJI drones is being able to do it. I know this is probably not the best thing to want, but a safety override or some kind of override for sensor systems. And the only reason I'm saying that is because, for instance, the GeoSlam unit, I've turned off all of the sensors on there, both in the pre-flight, and then you go through and you turn off precision landing and everything, and I'll take off and I still have issues where it says, "Oh, downward sensors, you shouldn't be doing this flight. Downward sensors are blocked." And if I go in and I land, it will not let me take off unless I shut the drone off and turn it back on. Um, so it would
That's
be really nice if there was just an override, like, "Hey, listen, I've already done my pre-checks. I understand what's going on with the drone. I understand that your sensor systems are blocked. That is intentional. Let me take off anyways because I have confirmed that it's good. Heck, even just let me take a picture of the drone and post it into the logs and then say, okay, that's why the sensors are blocked. It's not because they're damaged. It's because there's a payload in the way and I need those sensors to be blocked for a purpose." So a safety override would be kind of nice. Of course, that might not necessarily be good because there'll be operators that will just safety override every single time. But there are certain instances and cases where a safety override may be necessary in order to be able to ensure a safe flight.
I agree.
So,
So, what do you think that there's no new sensors or whatever today, no new payloads? You surprised by that or?
I don't think I'm too surprised. A lot of the payloads I think were already pretty good. Like the P1, that's a solid payload. I think one of the things I would really like to see is properly calibrated lenses for the P1 because unfortunately they make a 35 millimeter lens and it says Enterprise on the side of it. That's the recommended lens. But you can put the X7 lenses on there. That's their extended lens line. But those ones aren't properly calibrated. You actually have to calibrate them after you get the lens and you have to use like a completely different card and a bunch of different things. Excuse me. So it would be nice to actually see some calibrated lenses for the P1 that have the enterprise stamp that are specifically made for the P1 so you're not having to constantly buy a new lens, recalibrate it, all that other junk. But I think maybe it would be nice to see some upgrades to the thermals too. But other than that, or even I think you were making mention to like the L1 to like an L2.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought because it had been out for a while. Came out initially, and then you had that big discounted price went from 13 grand to
Mm-hmm.
to the high eights. I kind of figured that they're trying to get rid of stock and get kind of all around the industry from every brand, everybody's, going away and moving on from the Avia that, thought there'd be that too, but doesn't look like it. But
Yeah, and it's how do I put this? It would be nice to see them use another sensor, because there's been some videos that show that there's some data undulation when it comes to that P1 sensor compared to other lidar units like a GeoSlam or an Inertial Labs or some of the other ones out there. So it'd be nice to see if they
Scan or
upgraded it. And
Phoenix
what's
or
yeah.
yeah, any of those.
hmm So it'd be nice to see some upgrades where that's not necessarily an issue anymore, and it's better for survey grade capabilities instead of having to plan around it constantly.
Have you seen any of this on the user data and can see more of your data and how it's encrypted and all that? Is that, if that's something they currently do on that, or is that part of this new controller? Or
I think there was some stuff in the release video that it's the M300 already does quite a bit, like the hot swappable batteries. That's that's M300 already does that. So the 350,
yeah,
it's just restating the same news, which I mean it's still important news. If it's the first time you've seen the drone, you're going to need to know that. But there is, I think, already some data encryption, and there's ways to just shut off on the controller um, data transmission entirely. Now, that doesn't necessarily matter, unfortunately, to the powers that be in our country. So there are certain jobs where you just can't use the drone entirely. But if they're putting some extra data encryption, so that way your data is not being siphoned off, that's pretty important. And you could always use data scrubbing procedures too, where you don't connect it to the internet, get the data that you need, and then you pull all of it off and then scrub the whole system before you connect it back to whatever you're doing.
it looks like same price or
Wow,
another $200. So
that's not too bad, especially with the range. We kind of touched on the range, but we really didn't talk too much about it. So I've seen some operators, some companies that have been using the M300 for BB loss capabilities, and being able to do 20K is fantastic for getting out to beyond visual line of sight. But to also touch on that, having a larger transmission range doesn't always mean you have to go out. A better transmission range also means better transmission power, which means if you're operating around concrete structures or metallic structures, you're going to be able to maintain a better, more stable connection than if you had just the 10K range or even a 5K range.
I agree. That's an underlook
Mm-hmm.
aspect of it. I wonder what the difference between these two kits are. Looks like two batteries, controller, and then if you go up for the extra 1,000, what do you? Maybe is that just a? Oh, here it is.
It's probably like a care refresh program or something.
Yeah, it's just that looks like extra care. So,
Mm-hmm.
so guess on the current pricing. I wonder if they're still selling the M300 as
Yeah.
or is it off their website today?
They might be selling old stock, or it might be sent out to a bunch of different vendors.
Still on here. I'll say is slightly cheaper for the new one. So
Yeah.
can't beat that too.
No, that's a good price, especially getting the night vision and everything like that. Extra range on there, better battery capability. You had sent me a little spec sheet on the back for compatibility, and it looks like some of the old payloads won't be supported anymore.
What are
So
some? Just going to read that off.
uh, the old payloads that look like they're not going to be supported, and they're supported on the M300 RTK smart controller, but if you upgrade to the RC Plus or the 350 and the RC Plus. It looks like the Z30, the XT2, and the XTS are not supported on the new one or the old one with the new controller. Those are the only ones that are not supported.
So, well, that's not. I don't think I know of anybody or heard of anybody using those.
Yeah,
Still
I could
2023, so
I could see some use with the X30, but especially with the new thermal sensors that are out right now, I don't know if anybody's still using the old thermal cameras from the M200 days.
I wonder
But
if
that's
I'm gonna be able to plot my Inspire 3 camera on this. I doubt it, but that'd be
yeah,
nice.
that would be kind of nice to actually have a nice filming camera to be able to throw on there.
Yeah, you'd lose the waypoints and the other things that make that, but you'd get double the battery life too. So
Hmm.
maybe in some there. So same 2.7 kilogram, 6 pound, 6 count capacity. Looks like same kind of case, same everything, but
Hmm.
still a solid unit. So anybody have any comments out there? Looks like we got some people watching. What is your take on it? Anybody want to share their opinion before we head off for the day? But anything good, bad, and different? What do you think? What was your expectation? Let's hear what y'all have to say. So, so I assume you probably won't be getting one anytime soon, John.
No, no, definitely not right now. It's the M300 does everything that I need it to do, but eventually I wouldn't mind upgrading to another unit because I only
That's
have the one M300 right now, and having two uh, is a lot better in case one goes down. That's the big thing. It's two is one is none rule that I like to run by.
that's true too, and get some more employees too that you could get the new one and pawn off your old one to them. So
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think if anything, one of the nice things about this is that it definitely feels more like a product refresh than it does a brand new drone, which just to some it might not be all that stellar, but at the same time it means they've already had a pretty good unit already set and ready to go. They're just doing a little bit more and even better since everything's backwards compatible with the old M300 right now. It's it just means you're going to get way more life out of the old unit you already have because they're going to continue allowing you to be able to use that unit. And even when you do need to upgrade, that it's going to be the same unit. So you're not going to have to do a buttload of retraining on anything. You're going to be able to deploy that unit out there as fast as possible. And that's very important for anybody who's running these for operators.
very true.
Mm-hmm.
Underrated, underrated part of it, and that's kind of nice thing about DJI overall is they make all their things so damn easy to use.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thought it was pretty funny when I got my M300 the first time that it's, basically the same exact process as, flying a Mini 2 or Mini 3 or, their whole lineup is basically the same. And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of funny and unique on how that works. So I'd like to, remind everybody that tomorrow, this is kind of the dry run for tomorrow, but myself and Nathan William West from Faro, we're going to be talking about all things SLAM LiDAR. So nothing product specific or anything. We'll talk about some products and how some are handheld, some are backpack, some are big wearables, and how SLAM is used in autonomous vehicles and everything in between. But just learn about SLAM. It's the future. More and more brands are heading that way, and more, traditional, navigation based drone lidars, moving to that route, moving to that capability. So it's something to keep in mind and plan this one out instead of kind of impromptu. Made this 12 hours ago, but got about 400 people that are enrolled for tomorrow, so it should be a good event. So we'll wait a second longer. John will be in there as well. He'll be in there writing some nice comments. He's a definite friend of SLAM. Loves his unit. Gets a lot of use cases out of it. So, how many times or how many ways have you used your Slam? Used a handheld, backpack? You done a
Yeah.
vehicle mode one yet?
I haven't done a vehicle one, but I'm half considering about just holding it outside of the vehicle, but strapped to my hand somehow, and just kind of just seeing what I can do with that. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to be able to use that GeoSlam unit, and after I compared that data, I think I mentioned that earlier. After I compared the 44 acres we had mapped together to the Inertial Labs XT32 data, and the fact that it lined up 1 to 1 on top of each other, that was fairly impressive. That they were both to scale, they both had the exact same measurements. I would need to do some more control on that just to make sure that they came out correctly. But the fact that one had GPS to tie that all into, and the other one just said, "Yep, that's a mound. I know where I'm at," and got almost the exact same measurements is just mind blowing.
Yeah, especially that this can do so many things and something like that. Not to knock on it, it's one hell of a unit, but it does the one thing really well, and this does
Mm-hmm.
7 or 8 things
Mm-hmm.
well too. So yeah, it should be a good event. Hopefully, we get some good questions, get some good input on there. Nathan's always the master as well. So we're not getting no comments today, John,
That's
fortunately,
all
but
good.
we'll talk about the Matrice. If you're interested in having the Matrice P1 GeoSlam, John is based in Spokane, Washington. He's always looking to teach people, integrate people how to do this sort of thing in their own business. Provides the service himself and everything in between. So make sure you contact him as well. ScoutAerialSolutions.com. He's got a contact us page, beautiful Google form. There's his phone number as well. But make sure to give him a call. Expert, pick either of our brains if you want to message us a question, right one on John's website or anything. We're happy to help. Happy people integrate this sort of thing into their life. There's a lot of good that can come out of it. So,
Mm-hmm.
well, a lot of fun, John. Appreciate you. Owe you one. I'm glad we could do this and
Yeah,
have you on
absolutely.
for tomorrow. And um, hope to show you that M350 here in a couple of weeks when mine gets in. Ordered a Mavic 3M today too. I don't know
Oh,
if I
nice.
told you that, so we'll have to bring that by you too to see.
Absolutely.
So
Putz around with it, do some mapping.
let's do it. Yeah, I'm gonna just got my StoneX 3D license. And play around more in that and
Oh
implement.
yeah. We gotta play with that unit too. That's gonna be a
Oh
fun
yeah,
unit to play around
I didn't
with.
think about that, but yeah, the StoneX XVS here. So definitely another. This is a photo slam camera, 3D modeler, um, high resolution thing, and then that too, and then their kind of classification point cloud software, StoneX 3D. They got a photo side and a lidar side, and you can get kind of the pro module, get them both. So, well, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time. Curious to see how many people ended up showing. Let's see if I can see before we go. But everybody has any questions again, give us a call, message us on LinkedIn. Here to help answer questions. So we'll see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be all over again, myself, William West, all about SLAM and how it can help your life and how it's being used all around the world. Autonomous vehicles, robots and warehouses, 3D mapping, and everything in between. So thanks again, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.